Hey. So today I'm making this video to answer the question of how my son wound up where he is at from my point of view. So I will be referring to the place where my son is currently residing as the Green Mile. If you're not familiar with the Green Mile, it used to be one of my very favorite movies until it became my life. It stars Tom Hanks and Michael Duncan Clark. If you've never heard of it, go look it up. It's a wonderful movie. You can watch it. I will warn you, it's a tearjerker. Anyways, my son left home when he was about 17 years old. He left home because of a couple of reasons. Number one, he wanted freedom. As a 17-year-old young man, he felt like he should be able to run the streets and do whatever he wanted to do. We ran a very strict household. We are Christian. We raised our children as Christians, and there were a lot of things that were not allowed. Number one, my children did not have cell phones, even though he was 17. They were not allowed to have cell phones at our house. Why? Because the primary reason is because we were poor and couldn't afford to purchase cell phones and pay a cell phone bill for our children. We had bigger things to worry about, like making sure they had a roof over their head and food in their bellies. And so cell phones were not allowed. Going out to parties and things like that with their friends, not allowed. We did not allow it because the neighborhood that we lived in was rough, and just we knew things obviously that our kids did not know about some of the people that they wanted to hang around with. Number three, my children were never allowed to spend the night away from home, ever. That was because of what I went through as a child. And wanting to protect my children to not have to endure the same things that I endured. So they never spent the night with my mom, my husband's mom, no aunts, no uncles, no friends, none of that. There was no sleepovers at all, period. My children never knew what it was to spend the night outside of my house until they left my house, literally. And so after he left home when he was 17, I think he was like 16 and a half, almost 17 when he left home. So the first few months, and this is his account, the first few months he was homeless. So he lived in abandoned houses, like he would move from house to house. At night, he would go eat at his friend's house. Whoever would let him eat, he would eat there. And he just found himself like walking around basically doing nothing for a long time. And then eventually he went to live with my youngest sister, who he knew because, he would see her when they were growing up, when we would go to my mom's or what have you. They would see her, but it wasn't someone that was like this intricate part of our lives because most of my family, while I was raising my children, were not around. We were not around them. We didn't go around them. And again, it's because of us knowing the kind of people that they were and the things that had happened to me growing up. And, even some into adulthood, some traumas that I had to survive from my family. We did not really hang around them and let our children around them. So he knew who his aunt was. And eventually, I don't even know how he wound up finding her and going to, going to live with her. But he did wind up going to live with her. So initially, when he wound up going to live with her, he went to school. My kids went to private school, so clearly he had dropped out of private school. When he left home, he didn't want to go back to the private school that we paid for him to go to. He didn't want to go there, so he decided to go to public school. So he was going to public school for a little while. He was on the football team. He went to homecoming, whatever, he was doing that for a little while. Then he decided that he didn't want to do that. He dropped out of school because being in the streets all day, sleeping all day, and staying up all night partying was fun, and that's what he wanted to do. And that is what he was allowed to do at my sister's house. And so I knew what kind of person my sister was. I knew the things that she was involved in, not because I hung around her or was around her, but because word gets around, other family members telling me the things she was involved in. My mom had custody of her kids for like 10 years, and it was like the most traumatizing experience probably of my mother's life. But just knowing the stories, hearing the stories from my mom and other family members, and then when we would go back to the city where we were from, other people would be telling me, oh girl, your sister this and your sister that and blah, 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 blah. So we knew the things that she was into. We knew the things that she did, but my son did not until he started living with her and became involved. At one point, he told me that he used to be a runner for her. And if you know anything about the streets, then you know what a runner is. But he used to be a runner for her, not because he wanted to be, but because if he didn't, he would be back on the streets, and he didn't want to be back on the streets. Could he have come back home? Absolutely, but he would have had to follow home rules. And clearly, he didn't want to do that. So he was a runner for her for a little while. And again, these are all things that I found out after it was happening. But he eventually met a young lady over there that he became involved with, and he was with her one night or one day, and he had to be rushed to the emergency room. Now he was about 19 or 20 at this point. Had to be rushed to the emergency room. So I get a call from the young lady from the hospital. I mean, they hadn't been together but about maybe 2 months or so. And I get a call from her from the hospital saying that he was in the hospital and they didn't know what was wrong with him. And then the nurse calls me from the hospital saying that I needed to come in and sign paperwork because they were having to bay flight him to another hospital because that they saw fluid on his brain, but they didn't know what it was. So they were bay flighting him over to another hospital so that he could be treated. So I had to come and sign the paperwork because he was incoherent, didn't know what was going on, what have you. So I got there, and sure enough, he was out of it. He didn't really know what was going on. And I signed the paperwork, and me, my husband, and his girlfriend at the time all drove to the next hospital, and they bay flighted him to the next hospital. And when we got there, they had him in the emergency room and they ran all kinds of tests on him or whatever. And then they had a neurologist come in who said they were going to be running tests on him and that they would call me like if anything happened. Well, at 4 something in the morning, I get a phone call that they're rushing him to emergency surgery because they found that he had 3 brain aneurysms and 2 of them had ruptured. And so they were rushing him into surgery to see if they could repair the aneurysms. So, I don't even remember how long. He was in surgery for like 10 hours before they even came out to say they were moving him to recovery and what have you. And then it was another, I don't know, 4 hours in recovery before we could even see him because they didn't know if he was going to wake up or not. So we're all at the hospital. He's had these aneurysms, whatever, and then he's in ICU for weeks. And then when he's released from the hospital, I wanted him to come home, come back home with us, me, my husband, and his brothers, so that he could recover properly, get the treatment he needed to recover from these brain aneurysms that literally almost killed him. Well, me and his girlfriend had it out a few times in the hospital because, she thought that whatever she thought, it doesn't even matter to me what she thought. But the mere fact that she was very disrespectful to me in the hospital let me know that this is not someone that's going to be at my house. And so he told me that like he wanted to come, but he wouldn't come if she couldn't come. And there was no way, like, you could come visit, but at this point she couldn't even come visit because of the amount of disrespect she had shown in the hospital, not only to me but to my husband. it was just very disrespectful. And there's just no way that you're going to come to my house and be disrespectful to me. And so he decided that he was going to go and stay with his aunt, back with his aunt. Well, he went and stayed back with his aunt. And I remember one time he got upset with me because they were all at my mom's house, and I went by my mom's house to check on him to see, like, how's he doing, with his recovery, whatever. And I get there, he's in the backyard with some of his friends and his girlfriend, and they're all smoking weed. And oh my God, I got so mad. I got mad at my mom. I was mad at him because why is he smoking weed when he just got out of the hospital? Well, they said, oh, it's okay. It's just weed, right? Well, I knew that you have a brain injury. There's no way that you should be smoking weed and you're not even going to the doctor to get treatment. Like, you're not following up with the neurosurgeon. You haven't gone and gotten tests to see, is your brain healing right? Like, nothing is happening here. And so at one point, like after this, I got mad and, I left. He was there, and I'm arguing with him. I'm arguing with my mom. And so I wound up leaving because I'm like, you know what? Hey, I'm not going to argue. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want you to be well, but if you don't want to be well, I don't know what to do. So shortly after that, I don't know, some weeks later, my mom calls me. She's frantic because he is not the same person. He's angry. And this particular instance, she was telling me that he had ripped up her brand new flower bed. She just planted this beautiful flower bed in the front yard, and he kicked it up and ripped up her flowers because he was angry. He was mad. And this just was not not the person that we knew. It wasn't the same person. And so after that, I don't know what else happened. I do know that I tried to encourage him to go get follow-up treatment, whatever. I think he went to maybe one appointment after he was released from the hospital, maybe two, I don't know. But he never really went and got follow-up care. So in the meantime, in between time, because he has not healed, I remember seeing on the news just a few months after he was released from the hospital, this lady in a couple of cities over from us was murdered. Now, mind you, when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, that's horrible, right? Absolutely horrible that someone broke into her house and took her life. Didn't think it twice about it, said a little prayer for her family, my condolences, whatever. And then a month after that, another guy, same city, life taken again in a robbery, right? I'm like, oh my God, his poor wife, his poor family, oh my God. I'm seeing this on the news play out and not realizing how this was going to affect my life. And so it wasn't even until a couple of years later, my son had a gun and he got stopped. Him and his friend were walking and they got stopped by a police officer. I don't even know why they got stopped. But anyways, he had this gun on him and he was arrested for having this gun. It wasn't his. I don't know where he got it from. Anyways, it wasn't his. But he was arrested for having this gun. So he went to jail. They let him out. They released him on ROR. And then he went to court. They put him on probation for a year. So at this point in time, he was on probation and he violated his probation. Not once, but twice, I think. So anyways, the last time he went to court, the public defender that he had said, oh, whatever she said, my client just wants to get this over with. He doesn't want to be on probation, whatever. So I guess the judge took that to mean that, hey, he just wants to serve time, right? So they gave him a year and a day in prison. So while he's serving this year and a day in prison, this investigation into these homicides is still going on. I forgot about these homicides because what do they have to do with me, right? Nothing. So anyways, I get a call at work one day. It's my sister on the other line. telling me that some detectives came to her house and they're questioning her about these homicides that she knows absolutely nothing about, and saying that my son had something to do with them. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And she swore up and down she had nothing to do with it, didn't know anything about it, don't know why they're coming to question her. I mean, I was convinced. I'm like, okay, then she's like, oh, he wouldn't have done this. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm convinced because, yeah, I know my son. He wouldn't have done this. Like, there's no way. So anyway, she's like, come by when you get off from work so we could talk about this, whatever. So I go by her house when I get off work. I leave work. I actually left a little early to go by her house, because at this point in time, because my son and at that time my daughter also had moved in with my sister, because my daughter's the oldest. She had moved in with my sister. So I tried to build a relationship back with my sister, one that was non-existent for, I don't even know how many, 20 years or more. But I built a relationship with her. Like, I used to go hang out with her on the weekends. She would do my hair, whatever. Now, mind you, I had no idea any of this stuff was going on. I was so stupid. But anyways, I go to her house and she convinces me that there's no way, she knows absolutely nothing about what is going on. Now, mind you, my son is already in prison serving his year and a day for the gun charge. So I'm like, well, I don't know, whatever. So the reason that he got connected to the case was because when they ran his, when you go to prison, they do your DNA. They take your blood sample, they run your DNA through the system to see if anything pings it, your fingerprints, all of that good stuff gets run through a system, to see if you get pinged anywhere for any other crimes. Well, they ran his DNA and it pinged on some DNA sample that they took from a hoodie that was found a ways off away from any of the crime scenes, but days later after the crime even occurred, somebody called saying that there was a hoodie on the back of their truck that wasn't there the night before, and the police collected it as evidence, and they took DNA samples off of it. And I think they said there was like 22 different DNA samples on that one hoodie, and my son's DNA sample was one of the DNA samples that was on that hoodie. So anyways, that's how they then connected him to the crime that has him on the Green Mile. The other crime that so he's serving two sentences. One is life and one is on the Green Mile. So the life sentence, the only thing that connects him to that crime is the two individuals that have been proven to be the masterminds to set up these crimes and then send my son in to commit these crimes, is because they said that he did it. Apparently or allegedly, whatever you want to, however you call it, the pew that was used in the crime that has him on the Green Mile was also the same pew used on the crime that got him the life sentence. But it wasn't his pew. He got that from my nephew, who I can't even tell you, like, I had no relationship with my nephew at all, period. Like, his mom is my sister from my dad had two families. So he had one set of kids with his first, she wasn't his wife, but I call her his first wife because, he had 5 kids with her before he met my mom, and had another 6 kids with my mom. So my father had a total of 11 kids. But my nephew is from my sisters. Like, he literally was almost the same age as me. But anyways, it was allegedly his pew. Now, my son didn't know any of these people, had never been to the city as a child that these crimes occurred in. However, my nephew lived there. And knew the people personally. Like the one lady, from what I understand, he used to mess around with. And then the other people lived directly across the street from his, well, not directly, diagonally across the street from his mom. He used to play dominoes and spades with them or whatever. My nephew did. Um, and so my son didn't know any of these people, but when his DNA pinged and they indicted my son, they indicted my son, they indicted my nephew, they indicted my sister. My nephew and my sister turned on my son and said he was the one that committed both of these crimes. Um, they admitted to being the ones to set the crimes up, but in exchange for their testimony against my son, they were given immunity. They weren't charged with these crimes. So my nephew, after it was all said and done and after his testimony, wound up going to prison for 3 years. He went to prison for 3 years because he shot at one of my brothers, his uncle, in a moving vehicle. And so he served time for that, 3 years for that. My sister was sentenced 3 years for perjury because initially when they started questioning her, she stuck with the, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't know. But then um, they wound up putting her not there, but as some kind of accessory or whatever, because the cell phone that was taken from the second crime scene that was used to call her, they are saying she knew what was going on because she received the phone call, then made a three-way phone call to my nephew, because my nephew had left my son at the scene or what have you. And so he was trying to find out where he was at to pick him up. So, anyways, so after my son was indicted and he went to court, like my sister still stuck with the whole, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't have any parts of this. I don't know what's happening. I didn't do anything, whatever. It wasn't until, and this is the part that shocks me, is when I tell people that this is the story she stuck with. Like, I literally tried to maintain a relationship with her during the trials and everything until we got to trial. And I was told that I couldn't be in the courtroom when she testified because she said she felt intimidated by me. Now, mind you, there was no reason for her to feel intimidated by me. I was there for my son. I was trying to be there even for her because I'm thinking, oh my God, they're putting her in such a difficult position to have to testify against her nephew. But at the end of the day, they were not putting her in a difficult position. She knew exactly what happened. And still to this day, will say she had nothing to do with it to this day. But I've read the court transcripts. I've read her testimony. And she had everything to do with it. She set it up. She sent my son in to commit these crimes, knowing that he had just gotten out of the hospital not even 6 months prior from having 3 brain aneurysms and almost died, and didn't go get any follow-up care to make sure he was healing properly. She knew that his whole attitude had changed, like his demeanor had changed. So when people ask me, do I think the aneurysms played a part? Absolutely, I do. Because when you take this mild-mannered, good-mannered, loving, kind individual that was my son when he left my house, and you tell me about these things that happened after he left my house, after these brain aneurysms, not even after he left my house, but just after the brain aneurysms, do I think brain aneurysms played a part in it? Absolutely. Do I care that other people say, oh, it didn't have anything to do with that? No, I don't, because you're not a neurosurgeon, you're not a psychologist, you're not a psychiatrist. Who are you to say that those brain aneurysms did not cause brain damage? Or even if it wasn't a permanent damage, it was traumatic. And to put it in my son's words, he was angry for sure, and he didn't understand why his own brain was trying to kill him. Let that sink in. When you feel like your body has turned against you, your brain has turned against you and is trying to kill its host, basically. And so I just wanted to tell that story because, people look at me and they think I'm trying to get sympathy or what have you. I'm not. I honestly am not. I appreciate the people that genuinely pray for me and genuinely pray for my son. But the judgment and oh, you want sympathy? I don't. I'm a very strong person. I've always been a strong person. I've survived more in my lifetime than I would ever wish on my worst enemy. And that's a whole nother story, another book I could write. But the reason I tell my son's story and the reason why I no longer cower down and let people make me feel defeated because of what I've been through is because that's still my son and I love him. And I want other parents to know that sometimes life changes people and life changes our children. But that's not a reason to not love them. That's not a reason to turn your backs on them and to give up on them. I will never stop loving my son. I will never stop loving any of my children because God gave me those beings. No matter what the circumstances were that they were conceived under, He gave them to me. They're mine. I love them. I love them. They are wonderful human beings. So to the parents out there, if you're still with me, if you have a child that's incarcerated, no matter what they've done, love them. Love them. Support them as much as you can. Be there for them, even if it's just a phone call once a month, once a week, whatever. Love your child because no one is going to love them like you, their mother or their father. And no one is going to take care of them like you. The one regret that I have with my son being in this situation is that I didn't make him come home after he got out of the hospital. If I could go back, I would change my mind. I would. I would let him come. I would let his girlfriend come. I would. Because I realize now that minor inconvenience to me cost lives, not just my son's. My son has a son. He's only known his dad in prison. It cost a wife her husband. It cost children their mother. It cost my son his life. So if I could go back, would I change? Would I change my mind? If I knew, if I would have had just the smallest inclination that my son would have been involved in the things that he was involved in, I would have changed my mind. Parents, love your children. Love them at all cost, because those are your children. God gave them to you. Be blessed.